Hello friends, I am so thrilled to be today in my father's garden, and welcome. I've been in my father's garden for almost 4 decades now, and I'm so glad I will always be a little girl in my father's garden. And today I'm so excited because he's made these brilliant, super easy little structures so that he can be warming the soil and growing so many more greens and early things in this season. But let me not get ahead of myself. Today is live Q&A day, and we have a number of awesome questions. I'm excited to dive in, and certainly you here watching, hello Suzanne, jump right in. I can't wait. This is not Petra monologue, I hope. So jump right in, and I want to begin with a poem. Whatever happens, don't fall into despair. Even if all the doors are closed, a secret path will open. It will be there for you, no one knows, and you can't see it yet. So many paradises are at the end of this path. Be grateful. It is easy to thank after obtaining what you want. Thank before having what you want, friends. Shams of Tabriz, and thank you, Shams. Thank you, and without further ado, I'm excited to jump in for some wonderful questions. First, we have Robin in Connecticut. I'm thrilled to learn more about companion planting and avoiding pests and diseases. So yes, let's talk companion planting. So I have a whole blog about this because is it an art? Is it a science? It is all of the above. And check out the blogs. There is so much more to learn and to share. But here's the thing. There's like tomatoes like basil and carrots love dill, and there's all these little mnemonics. And I kind of think a lot of it comes down to this. Some things just like to grow in the presence of other things, and some things are just insanely beneficial, so you want them everywhere. We've actually made a little companion planting collection for you that has 6 mostly herbs and flowers in it. And so think things like dwarf calendula and dwarf marigolds. A dwarf marigold, or Queen Sophia, she's literally a foot tall, a foot wide, not even like 10-11 inches, and so she can just tuck in between your broccoli and in between your cabbage and just be blossoming, inviting beneficial insects in from all over. So these little things like a tiny little dwarf marigold all of a sudden brings in all these beneficial insects and isn't competing with the root systems of the other plants around it. That is a fine companion plant. Same is true for dill and so many other things. So check out that blog. There's so much to it. And there's a lot of kind of terrible information that you'll find on the internet. But I'm excited to share with you that blog that has so much about companion planting. And let's talk about avoiding pests and insects. And I'm so glad because Kelly says, delighted to see your warm and welcoming face, Petra. Oh, stop. I wish I could see yours, but your words come through so strong, my friend. Thank you. So let's talk about, yes, avoiding pests and insects. This is a perfect time to be thinking this, friends, because it's spring, it's early spring, and so much of health, human health, is preventative, right? Making sure that you're eating well and you're sleeping well. Plants have immune systems too. So an unstressed plant is much healthier than a stressed plant. Ralphman says, hi there, watching from a safe, different, sad face. Ralphman, in case you didn't know, is my father. And in case you missed it at the beginning, I am in my father's garden, and it's heartbreaking. Welcome to the world of pandemics. I'm in my father's garden for the first time that I've been in my father's garden without him there by my side. I'm so glad you're here in so many ways, Dad. And you all as well, joining us from near and far as well. So let's talk soil health, which is plant health. So if you want to be avoiding diseases, avoiding insects that are pesty insects, you want healthy plants. I can't tell you the number of times, it's thousands, that I have noticed the first broccoli, the first potato to get a disease, to get an insect. It's the least healthiest broccoli plant in our field. It's the least healthy potato plant in your field. So one of the best things that you can do right now to prevent diseases and pesky insects that you don't want is to simply be feeding your soil really well. So if you have compost, amazing. If you don't, you're just another human like the rest of us wanting more compost. Compost is amazing. We also, if you have leaves and you're shredding them up really fine, work those into your soil as well. Here in the Northeast is deciduous hardwood forests, one of my favorite ecologies on the planet, have one of the richest soils on the planet as a direct result of those amazing deciduous leaves falling every year, bringing those nutrients up from the subsoil into the leaves and dropping them so that we all have access to them in the soil again. So yes, I hope you never look at deciduous leaves the same. They're total magic. Another thing that you can do, we have this granular fertilizer that is what we put literally by the ton on our farm every year, and it's animal, vegetable, mineral. It has over 100 micronutrients. And this 5-pound bag covers 250 square feet. So you can sprinkle it in just before you double dig your beds or do any other kind of tillage. You can also put it into containers. I brought a container, heaven forbid we plant some seeds in it for my dad. This is foreshadowing. And so with container gardening, you can put 1 cup of this granular fertilizer into each gallon of soil and make sure that you are incorporating it really well. And that way, every square inch, every square millimeter is full of nutrients for your plants to jump into. So there's also fish emulsion in terms of fertility. So we literally get 5 50-gallon buckets of this, and every week we're spraying our plants with this all season long, and it makes them healthier, it makes them more nutrient dense, more resilient in terms of those diseases and pests. So, and this is, a little goes a long way. You dilute 1 ounce of this concentration into a gallon of water, and you can either drench it, like literally putting that dilution on roots, or dream of dreams, you can foliar feed them. So dedicate 1 spray bottle, not the one that you're planning on ever using for anything ever again for any other reason, and your dedicated spray bottle for fish emulsion. All of a sudden, because fast facts, leaves uptake nutrients. It's not just roots of plants that uptake nutrients. Leaves can actually uptake nutrients. Isn't that amazing? So when you put, that specific 1 ounce to 1 gallon is really specific. Too much, you can easily overfeed them, also attract raccoons, but 1 ounce to 1 gallon is that perfect amount. And Melanie says, you have a voice of happiness. Bet you at the Philly Flower Show. It was so much fun to meet you at the Philly Flower Show. Hopefully we'll see you there again after a hot minute. And Kat says, in Ohio, lots of leaves here too. Yes, if you have deciduous leaves, oh man, you have got the best compost in the world, and very few nurseries, seed companies are going to be like, you've got free fertilizer. But this just in, you do. It's everywhere. And I hope you never see it quite the same way. And Kat says, even though it is 1 ounce to 1 gallon, do you have any problems drawing critters to the garden? So no, we never have had any issues, but stick to that 1 ounce to 1 gallon. I hear kind of horror stories all the time, to be honest with you. And it's kind of understandable. We live in this culture of more is more and bigger is better. And if a little bit is good, a lot more is even better, right? So, and I fall into this trap all the time. If I have 1 helping of supper, 2 is going to be great every night. Oh heavens. But yes, 1 ounce to 1 gallon, we've never had any issues with any critters. And we live, if you can see, our farm is a mile down the road from here, our father's garden. So we're surrounded by beautiful forests, skunks and possums, raccoons, all manner of things that would love to enjoy all manner of things, especially fish emulsion. So yeah, that 1 ounce to 1 gallon is so critical. So, and Melanie says, I was with the Georgia Gardener group. Your seeds are already sprouting here. Yes, that's amazing. And Rhonda says, how warm does it need to begin feeding? Awesome question, Rhonda. So we are not giving anything fish emulsion yet. Indoors, which we're about to start all our tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, we don't feed anything inside until a month, 5 weeks after we've started them. So they have 2-3 sets of true leaves. That's when we begin to feed our transplants. And in terms of the garden, here probably mid-April, third week in April, that's when we start to feed the garlic. So you'll see garlic. Oh, I wish you could see. There's garlic coming up here in my father's garden, and it's bright green all the way to the tips. You'll see in about a month, the tips of the leaves of the garlic will become yellow, and that's when we start to feed with fish emulsion. Basically everything else we don't really start feeding until June, but garlic, as many of you likely know, it's early to go, and so it's growing like gangbusters right now. I want to put a time lapse on our garlic and just watch it grow. So garlic gets it early, but basically we don't start feeding with fish emulsion until later in June, when things are really going. And when we transplant all of our transplants, hot tip, all of our transplants, before we transplant them, we are dipping them in this dilution so that their moist root systems are able to incorporate and integrate with the soil around them that much more quickly. And those additional nutrients, oh man, those additional nutrients of the fish emulsion send them off to the races that much more. So Dorothy asked, does fish emulsion work to keep bugs off Brussels sprouts? So yes, and it works to keep bugs off in that bugs are first and foremost attracted to less healthy plants. So in the sense that it's boosting your Brussels sprouts immune systems, yes, it's keeping diseases and insects off it. But if you're talking about like cabbage worms, for example, or aphids, which love to hide on the cool, humid undersides of your Brussels sprout leaves, it's not going to help them in that capacity. So it's a really good idea for boosting their health and nutrient density. And once you have other insects, that's when insecticidal soap is awesome. Also, I brought some to share with you. This floating row cover is one of the best things that you can do to keep insects off your Brussels sprouts, off your everything. And so, in fact, I'm going to share more about these hoops that my father made in a few minutes. But you can cover it. He has just clear plastic. White plastic, no go, but clear plastic, yes. But if you have not sheets, but floating row covers specifically, sheets are not going to let enough light through, but this floating row cover is a very finely spun woven polyester, and it lets plenty of light through, but it also traps, additional, not as much thermal, not as much warmth as plastic, but it still is notably going to warm the soil and thus your crops. So that we use floating row cover for 3 main purposes. 1, season extension. 2, like you mentioned, keeping the insects off those delicate vegetables, which we're growing for us, not you little insects. And number 3, when they're old and dirty and getting ragged, that's when we throw them over our carrots and parsnips germinating, and they help them germinate way faster. So another cat says, great tip on when to feed garlic. Mine is coming up really nice right now. Yes, you and millions and millions of people with their garlic all over the country right now. Isn't that amazing? I love this. Let's stop for a moment and just think about all the garlic that is rising, even though I'm here with my long johns and my hat. That's amazing. So Stephanie asks, did you already answer this? Can peas and spinach go in the ground now? I thought you posted this last week. So yeah, let's talk. Peas and spinach go in the ground now. What else can go in the ground? Let's just go through the laundry list. So there's direct seeding and there's transplanting, and we're about to be starting a ton of seeds for transplanting, but right now is the perfect time. We're here in the Finger Lakes in Zone 5, so we can directly be putting in the ground all kinds of things. And peas, number 1, harbinger of spring is you, if you didn't know, and peas too, takes 2 to tango. And here's a fast little tip with peas. So I like to plant the full-size piece, like this sugar snap is gonna be 5-6 feet tall. I'm going to plant this at the same time, not in the same place, but in the same row as this dwarf pea. And the thing that's awesome about this is that you plant them at the same time, keep life simple, and you get twice the harvest window. Because the dwarf, because they're so much smaller, they flower and fruit so much earlier, about 3-4 weeks before the full size. So by the time your dwarf peas are tapering off, that's when your full-size peas are coming to fruition, if you will. So plant them both on the same day. trellis them as soon as you can so you don't have to think about it ever again. And then you double your harvest window. So peas, yes. Also sweet peas. There's little Poncho, such a sweet pea. And we had a fun question about soaking sweet peas. So I have a little experiment to show you, but let me not derail myself. So sweet peas go in the ground now. Also mesclun mix. We have this wintergreen mesclun mix, which is amazing. It's been selected to regrow quickly in cold temperatures by a friend, Dan Brizois, up in Montreal. Amazing seed grower, and he has an awesome seed company, Tournesol Sunflower, Tournesol Seeds. Other things you can sow now, yes, you mentioned spinach, absolutely. And also Asian spinach. If you've never tried Asian spinach, tatsoi, get ready. And while spinach only germinates in cooler soils, it really doesn't grow well in the summer heat. Basically, if it's Memorial Day here in Zone 5 and you're planting spinach, it's too late. It probably isn't going to germinate. And if it does, it's going to bolt really quickly. So spring is the season, spring and fall for spinach. Asian spinach, by contrast, yes, it also will thrive and germinate in cool soils, but it also germinates in warm soils like a dream. So if you're looking for a summer spinach, Asian spinach is your girl. And cilantro, believe it or not, I always thought that cilantro was a summer crop along with my tomatoes, and it never occurred to me until I was in Oregon and Don Tipping was overwintering spinach. I do mean, well, spinach too, but cilantro, and my mind was blown. So we overwinter so much cilantro so we can save its seeds for you and you can enjoy it too. So now you know. Cilantro is much more sweet, tender, doesn't bolt as quickly in the cool temperatures. So another one I wanted to mention, poppies. So poppies grow now. Establish them in the cool, that's their trick. So many people struggle with poppies, and here's the thing, just like spinach, if you're planting them around Memorial Day, you've waited too long. They really want to establish, for whatever reason, in cool soils. So, and the nice thing about these Papaver somniferum poppies is they establish in the cold, and once they blossom, if you don't harvest them for bouquets and just let them go to seed, they gently dot themselves in your landscape for years to come, and not annoyingly, like calendula, which you can also plant now. Calendula is totally cold hardy. Calendula becomes this carpet of calendula, but poppies are this brilliant, just they know how to play nice and just dot themselves gently across your landscape. Jessica Reed, hello! Could we be interplanting carrots with our radishes now? When is a good time to sow carrot seeds? Great question. So certainly interplanting radishes, and I hadn't even gotten to radishes yet. Yes, plant radishes, not watermelon radishes, but any other small salad style radish, but not carrots. Arugula, chard, and kale, yes, but no carrots yet. And we have a little chart in Rise and Shine. So if you haven't already gotten Rise and Shine, you can actually download it for free on our website. The free version doesn't have all the pretty pictures and doesn't have quite all the bells and all the whistles, but among other things, it's a little 40-page book that I wrote that's all about starting seeds indoors and outdoors throughout the seasons. And there's a direct seeding chart, and among other things, it has the temperatures that you'll need to germinate. And so you'll see things like peas, can germinate from 40-degree soils to 75-degree soils. They have a really wide temperature window. Carrots, on the other hand, I forget what it is offhand, but it's much warmer. So if you plant your carrots now, likely they will just rot in the soil. So carrots hold off a little bit longer, and we basically don't start sowing carrots till early May, second week in May, even mid-May here in Zone 5. And Michael says, thank you for this opportunity. You're so welcome, Michael. Thank you. It's so much fun to be in the garden by myself, but it's so much more fun to be here with you all, even if we have to be here in disembodied pandemic spirits. So thank you. And Melanie says, love your flashy trout bag lettuce. Me too. You can plant some lettuces here now too. There's so many things you can be planting, really. So yeah, in the salad mix department, certainly mesclun mix, especially our winter hardy or the winter green mesclun mix, arugula. Winter density lettuce is a phenomenal lettuce that is super early. Also, romaines, who knew, have a fair amount of cold tolerance, and especially if it has red in it. Red pigments, fast facts, are nature's sunscreen and also cold protection. And so that flashy trout back, I wish I had a packet to show you, but imagine a beautiful leaf of romaine lettuce that is speckled with this beautiful burgundy. It's a German heirloom called Forellenschluss. I don't actually know how a German person would pronounce it, but Forellenschluss roughly translates, as clearly I'm an expert on German, to speckled like a trout. So it is just a beautiful speckled leaf of romaine, speckled like a trout, with this green leaf, all these, and red burgundy pigments. So yeah, that flashy troutback is a phenomenal spring lettuce as well. And Liz asks, what about pak choi? Absolutely. And arugula, yes. Arugula now, and pak choi, absolutely. We have a little baby bok choy called Shanghai green. It's kind of one of my favorite things in life, and it has been for about 4 years. I can't quite handle how much I love them. And Kelly asks, what should I do about algae growing on the soil of my cold frame? Growing closely spaced lettuce, should I open up to get rid of excess moisture? Trust your judgment. I trust your judgment, Kelly. Yes. So algae is a function of excess humidity and also airflow. So it's really hard to manage both of those things this time of year. So temperature, humidity, and airflow. So temperature, there's not a whole lot you can do. And airflow, yes. And excess humidity, yes. Open these up. So my father, I should start sharing about these, because you can totally make these at home as well. So open them up, especially during the heat of the day, and that will really help the algae situation. In the meantime, I would go and actually scrape the algae off your soil, and if you have a compost pile, tuck it right on the compost. Don't think twice. It's going to just melt back into the ooze of primordial compostness. You're not inoculating your compost with all algae to take over your garden to come. So simply scrape it off, and yeah, be as attentive to releasing that excess humidity and moisture as much as possible. And yes, oh, sorry, I won't be seeing you at the Portland Flower Show this year. Hopefully next year. Yes, agreed. And what can I interplant with the shallots I planted last fall? Whoa, what an astute question. So shallots, and I wanted to mention too, shallots you can totally plant now. I'm about to leave these for my father. I love you, Dad. And so you can totally plant shallots, these vegetative clonal shallots you can plant in the fall, same time, same spacing as your garlic. You can also plant them in spring, by contrast to garlic. If I planted garlic now, it wouldn't get very large. It wouldn't differentiate its cloves. It would be really small and sad. But I can plant these shallots now. In the fall, these Dutch red shallots will divide and become 25, 30 shallots per each shallot that I plant. Planted now, they won't differentiate as prolifically, but I'll still get 15, 20 easily, especially if the soil is delicious, i.e. lots of great fertilizer, or compost, or deciduous leaves, all of the above. So you can totally plant these now, and regardless of whether you plant them now or if you planted your shallots in the fall, you can interplant them gently with, I would recommend, things that are quick and cold hardy. So things like arugula, things like that wintergreen mesclun mix, things like cilantro. So you're gonna tuck them, and just like garlic, you're planting the shallots on 6-inch spaces, so a 6-inch grid. So you've got this 6-inch space in between each. So I would plant just 3-4 seeds in between each of those shallots, and then let each of those plants get a little larger. And 6-8 weeks from now, by the time the shallots are really coming into their own and their full beautiful crowns, you will have eaten 2 or 3 cuttings of these cut and come again cold hardy greens. So spinach is another good choice. I would pick the Asian spinach though, because it's more upright rather than prostrate, and it's going to, you'll get a couple more harvests off it before the shallots are really going to town too. So awesome question. Marina asks, and when will shallots poke up? Same as garlic? Actually, no. The garlic is up now. Our garlic is 4 inches tall. It's amazing. You are what you eat. Eat lots of garlic. You will be so resilient, friends. Shallots take their time. They're like me in the morning when it's this chilly and they're like, how about I just snuggle with my dogs / earthworms for another minute? So our shallots actually are 2 millimeters above the soil. So they've just barely emerged. So yeah, don't worry if your garlic is up and you're like, what about my shallots? What did I do wrong? Don't worry. They're probably just in the wings and they're just like the warblers waiting to return. They just want it to be a little warmer. So Anna asks, is the soil so wet right now? The soil is so wet right now. Is it okay to plant the seeds you have mentioned? Wonderful question. So yes, you want to make sure that your soil is well drained and that this is why preparing soil in the fall is really nice, because then in the spring it's just ready to go. You don't want to go in and dig in your beds right now. You don't want to be anything like doing tillage, because the soil is at a really, really sensitive place right now, really just coming back to life. So check out, if you haven't already joined our free online Seed Starting Academy, do it. And there's some soil prep info where I talk more about this at length, because there is a lot to share about it. But basically, if you have a prepared bed, like these raised beds my father has that are just ready to go, you can simply plant the seeds, and unless it's like a soupy mess, they're going to be just fine. So yeah, you don't want the soil to be too wet or too cold, but that's where, right here in the Finger Lakes Zone 5, here at Fruition Seeds and in my father's garden, the soil is warm enough for those earliest, most tenacious crops like peas and spinach and cilantro. And yeah, Chap says hi from Chicopee. I love Chicopee. I sing like a cat whose tail you stepped on. Great to see you in Philly. I cannot wait to sing with you again, my friend. I love you so much. And Marina shares, thank goodness I'm constantly wandering past the empty seeming bed and singing to them, hopefully. Absolutely. And Rhonda says, my shallots are peeking their little heads up in 6B. Yes, 6 is a little warmer than 5, and so glad they're well on their way. So I'm going to address another question that we had coming in earlier, and then I'm going to jump off, friends, and I can't wait. I think I'm gonna do this every week, and maybe Tuesdays, maybe another day. If you'd like this to happen more often, let me know, and if there's a better day, we can make it a democratic process. But basically, if you find this helpful, I've really enjoyed spending this time with you, and you know, it's an amazing gift that we have of having internet and having social media. We are so privileged. But I would love to know what would make you feel like you're not alone in your gardens, and I'm right there with you, because I am right there with you. Here we are together right now. So let me know how else I can be of service to you, friends. Oh, look, one more. Oh, Kat says, I love the raised beds and hoops. Do you have a video on making these? I'm actually about to make it right now. So maybe as my final question, I'll share with you a little bit more about these that my father made. And then I am gonna hop off, friends, but it won't be for long. So my father has these lovely raised beds. And so these raised beds, actually, they're Greta Love as well. And she's had these for years, and they're making the most amazing garden together now. It makes me so happy. And so these raised beds, they've simply taken hoops, and there's lots of different styles of hoops. If you're actually putting plastic on it, you want to have a wider gauge. If you're putting simply this, row cover on it, you can simply use, we actually have these on our website. They're called Spring Steel, and they look little, and they're just like me. They're little but mighty, just like you, little but mighty. And we bought a bunch of these in 2012 when Matthew and I started Fruition, and we still have them. And they're kind of amazing because they are so strong, even though they're so small, and you can bend them into any configuration. And metal, as you know, bends until it breaks. But the Spring Steel, bends into lots of different configurations, and here it is all these years later and they still haven't broken. So they're pretty amazing, perfect for gardening. And so we send them to you straight, and you can put them as tall for tall crops or as wide for shorter crops like salad mix. But you can put them into your garden bed and make these little hoops. You want to put them 5-6 inches down, so that lowest 5-6 inches of the wire is under the ground. But it's pretty remarkable how tenacious they are. And then you can lay, whether you have clear plastic, white plastic. We had a question earlier. No, go. It needs to be totally opaque and clear, so the light and those photosynthetic wavelengths can actually permeate. But you can then layer the floating row cover over it, and again, sheets, not floating row cover. Sheets totally fine to cover a plant from frost overnight, but in terms of actually holding in warmth during the day and not blocking those photosynthetic wavelengths, it's really important that you get something lighter, finer, and stronger, which is this floating row cover. So you can just lay that over, and I don't know if you are like me, we have these great big things called rocks that we grow in our garden. And so if you have rocks, you can simply put more rocks weighted down on the sides of your floating row cover than you would think, and that way it won't be blowing away on you faster than you'd think. So overdo it on the rocks. I wouldn't recommend rocks like this, but like getting actual stones. We also have sandbags on our website. In case you want to be a little more clean and tidy, which I rarely do, but in the case of rocks on our farm, we'll take the sandbags. But put those basically every 2 feet along the edge. And my father has pretty brilliantly you can see there's these candy bricks on the side, and then on the side he's able to actually open up the edge of this plastic and prop it open, so during the day, if it's too warm, like if it's above 60 degrees outside, it's going to be 90 plus in here. So he can simply prop this up and it will get lots of good airflow, the temperature will moderate, but then as soon as the sun starts going down, close it back up, here's the brick, and make sure it's nice and taut. And yeah, it's a pretty wonderful, super simple system that you could probably use with materials you already have on hand, which is the best part about it. Anna says, thanks so much. Yes, this is very helpful. I'm so glad. It's so much more fun when we do it together. And Mary says, from Washington State, so appreciate you in these times. So glad I stumbled upon you on Instagram. Likewise. And I use those peanuts. They're great. Awesome. And Kat says, thank you. You have so much information that is so useful. Well, friends, we all know more when we share more. So I have so much to learn from you as well. And I just want to step back and thank my father for teaching me so many things, especially just being quiet and showing up and spending time in my garden, and for Don Tipping and countless other friends and mentors who have been the farmers and gardeners of my soul for years, teaching me how to save seed and just grow plants and how to grow myself, and who relentlessly say yes when I relentlessly ask them if I can ask them another question. So it is the least I can do to pay forward all the gifts of so many people in my life who have entrusted me with their love and their care and their passion for plants and people being with plants. So it's an honor to transmit this joy to you, friends. I wanted to finish with the same thing that I started the day with, except can she find it? Yes, I did. So if you haven't already done this already in your life, find a little book, a blank book, and fill it with poems and other things that bring you joy, and in the best of times and in the hardest of times. And if you're lucky to have a friend named Pilar Nadell, she just might make you a book one day. Thank you, Pilar, that you can fill, so it fills you even more every time you look at it. But without further ado, and thank you again for joining me today, whatever happens, don't fall into despair. Even if all the doors are closed, a secret path will be there for you. No one yet knows. You can't see it, So many paradises, though, are at the end of this path. Let us be grateful. It is easy to thank after obtaining what you want. Let us thank before having what we want. So here we are. I don't know about you. Our gardens we haven't eaten much out of. We've eaten a lot of wild forage things. That's a whole other story. But our gardens aren't feeding us yet. But we still have so much to be thankful for. And how perfect that if we want to be eating more and sharing more, we sow these seeds now. And we shall. I'm so glad we get to do this together.